Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining the Small Business Administration's Restaurant Revitalization Fund webinar. We will give it a couple more minutes for attendees to join the meeting before we begin, but we thank you so much for being here and ready to learn about the information that the SBA has to offer. This webinar is offered in English and Thai. You can access the Thai interpretation by clicking the interpretation logo at the bottom of your Zoom screen and selecting Thai as your language. As I said, we'll give it a few more moments before starting the webinar, but we're so thankful to have you here joining us today.
สวัสดีค่ะดิฉันรอสลินปัทมาคันตินแบสเกสนะคะเป็นประธานสภาหอการค้าไทยของรัฐแคลิฟอร์เนียนะคะก็อยากจะขอบคุณทุกท่านนะคะที่ได้มาร่วมเวบินาร์ในวันนี้นะคะด้วยจัดร่วมกับทาง SBA ก็อยากจะสิ่งแรกก็คือขอบคุณคุณอรวรรณกิจพิพัฒน์นะคะเป็นเลขาของสภาหอการค้าไทยในการที่ coordinate webinar วันนี้นะคะกับทาง SBA เพื่อให้ร้านอาหารไทยทุกคนได้ความรู้เกี่ยวกับเรื่อง Restaurant Revitalization Fund นะคะที่จะมีงบประมาณที่จะมาช่วยเหลือร้านอาหารไทยในวิกฤตที่เกิดขึ้นโควิดที่ผ่านมานะคะขอให้ทุกคนได้มีความรู้มากๆนะคะวันนี้แล้วก็ถ้ามีคำถามนะคะถามได้เลยนะคะเป็นโอกาสดีที่จะถามโดยตรงเลยนะคะขอบคุณมากค่ะแล้ววันนี้เรามีล่ามไทยนะคะที่จะมาช่วยแปลข้อมูลในเวบินาร์วันนี้นะคะคุณต้องคลิกในลิงก์ interpretation นะคะถ้าคุณกำลังฟังอยู่ในมือถือ iPhone หรืออะไรนี้ค่ะมันจะมีจุด3อันตรงข้างล่างกับข้างขวานะคะเขียนว่า more นะคะถ้าคุณกดตรงนั้นนะคะมันจะเขียนว่า language interpretation นะคะมีรูปเป็น globe นะคะกดตรงนั้นนะคะแล้วก็ select ภาษาไทยได้ค่ะถ้ามีคำถามก็เขียนเข้ามาในแชทได้นะคะเป็นภาษาไทยก็โอเคค่ะ
Thank you so much, and thank you everybody for joining us here today. It's been a great opportunity to join with the Thai American Chamber of Commerce of California and be able to provide this valuable information to our small business community, particularly our Thai business community and the restaurant industry that has been so hard hit by the COVID pandemic. The Restaurant Revitalization Fund, it was designed and became public law on March 11th, 2021 as part of the American Rescue Plan Act. This act appropriated and provided over $28 billion for the Restaurant Revitalization Fund and authorized SBA to award these funds. The appropriations remain available until all of the funds are expended. The fund must be used for eligible uses, which I will talk about a little bit later, no later than March 11th, 2023. So all of the funds will need to be used prior to March 11th, 2023. As far as eligibility, what type of businesses are eligible for the Restaurant Revitalization Fund? Restaurants, as we know, but those are not the only institutions. It doesn't have to be a brick and mortar restaurant in order to qualify or be eligible to apply for these funds. Food stands, food trucks, food carts, as well as caterers and bars and saloons, lounges, taverns, non-alcohol beverage bars such as coffee shops or ice cream shops are eligible to apply as well. Additionally, bakeries, brew pubs, breweries, wineries, and distilleries, as long as their gross receipts exceed 33% for food and beverage sales to the general public, they are eligible or available to apply for this program. Now again, on-site sales for brew pubs, bakeries, breweries, microbreweries, tasting rooms, on-site sales should comprise of 33% or more of their gross receipts. Inns are eligible as well, as long as your on-site food and beverage sales to the public comprise of at least 33% as well. If you have a licensed facility that permits the production of alcoholic beverages, and the public can visit, taste, sample, and purchase products, you are eligible to apply as well. Other similar businesses where the public comes for the primary purpose of being served food or drink can be eligible as well. Now, entities that are ineligible for assistance include any state or local government operated business. If as of March 13th, 2020, you owned or operated more than 20 locations, regardless of whether those locations are restaurants or if they're in a different industry. And I'll talk a little bit more about that a little bit later. If you have a pending application for our shuttered venue operator grant, you are ineligible to apply as well. If you're a publicly traded company permanently closed or a nonprofit organization, you are not eligible to apply as well. Additionally, if the losses that you have incurred are less than $1,000, because the lowest funding amount is $1,000, if it is below that, you are ineligible to apply. Now, as far as the grant limits that are applicable, it is up to $5 million per location, and it cannot exceed $10 million total for the total number of affiliated businesses for the applicant. And as I mentioned before, the minimum award is $1,000. Now, there's a couple of differences between this program and other grant programs that the SBA has administered. I talked a little bit about the Shuttered Venue Operator Grant. Under that program, you needed to register with sam.gov. However, under this one, for the Restaurant Revitalization Fund, you do not need to register with sam.gov, and SBA will not require a DUNS number or cage identifier number. The minimum award, as I mentioned before, is $1,000. Additionally, valid unexpired ITINs are an acceptable means of applying for the Restaurant Revitalization Fund. Again, if you have a valid unexpired ITIN, you can apply for the program. There's some links that are here that are available that we'll put into the chat box and into the Q&A boxes, or into the chat box for folks to be able to access regarding ITINs and expiration of ITINs, and some FAQs or frequently asked questions provided by the IRS. Additionally, eligible applicants can be from a variety of different forms as far as the way that they're organized. C corporations, S corporations are eligible to apply. Partnerships, limited liability companies, sole proprietors, as well as self-employed individuals, independent contractors, tribal businesses, and LLCs that are taxed as S corporations or sole proprietors are eligible. Additionally, we get the question about whether or not franchises are eligible. Franchises are eligible if they meet all other program requirements. So the franchise must be listed on the SBA franchise directory. When you go into the application portal, the applicants will be able to look up their entity on the franchise directory. If your brand is not listed on the franchise directory, as well as brands that had been previously denied being put on the directory, the franchisor must submit the franchise documents or the agreement or other agreement that they have and all other documents and send them to franchise@sba.gov. Once it's received, it'll be reviewed and compared with SBA's other eligibility criteria, and you will hear back directly from our franchise folks. Again, for franchises that are not listed on the registry, the documents, the supporting documents for the franchise, whether it's a franchise disclosure agreement or other type of agreement, will need to be provided to franchise@sba.gov. And we'll put that email address in the chat box as well. Individuals that have gone through bankruptcy, applicants that are currently operating under an approved plan of reorganization, even if they have gone through bankruptcy, are eligible to apply. If they have filed a Chapter 11, Chapter 12, or Chapter 13 bankruptcy, and they meet all other program requirements, and they are operating under an approved plan of reorganization, they can apply for the program. You are not eligible if you are permanently closed, filed a Chapter 7 liquidation bankruptcy, or filed for either a Chapter 7, 11, 12, and 13, and are not currently under an approved reorganization plan. Now, I do want to talk about the permanently closed. Permanently closed does not mean a business who is temporarily closed and had the intent of reopening their doors, but they can't because of state or local restrictions. If you are planning on reopening and have not permanently closed your doors, you can be eligible to apply for this program. Now, earlier on, I had mentioned that you cannot have more than 20 locations. Now, this includes any and all locations that the applicant or your business and the affiliate businesses, even if they are not eligible for RRF. So for example, if your business and its affiliates have 16 dry cleaners and 5 restaurants, your business has 21 locations, which means you are not eligible for RRF. Each place where the applicant or affiliates conduct sales from, a permanent structure is counted as a location. If the applicant or affiliates conduct sales from multiple permanent locations, each individual address is counted as a separate location. Now, it's important to know that for a caterer or a single business with multiple food stands or food trucks or carts, the physical location is where the business is headquartered. So if you have one permanent structure with 5 food trucks, you only have one location. A caterer would have one location as well. For corporate groups, locations that are owned or operated by a single corporate group, it will count towards the 20 location maximum limit for eligibility and the $10 million aggregate limit on the Restaurant Revitalization Fund. When individuals or entities directly or indirectly own or control multiple locations, all of the locations must be counted towards the 20 location maximum limit. And the $10 million aggregate limit on RRF funding applies for all affiliated businesses. This includes any location that operates under a separate tax identification number or names and applies whether or not ownership or control is through an individual, a management company, or a holding company. So the ownership or control, regardless if you own it through a management company or a holding company, it still counts towards the 20 location maximum. For example, an individual owns or controls 16 restaurants, each have a separate tax identification number and 5 gas stations. Since all of these businesses must be counted, none of the restaurants are eligible for RRF funds. I'll say that again. If an individual owns or controls 16 restaurants, each, even if they have a separate EIN, Social Security number, or an ITIN, and they have 5 gas stations, even if they're all independently owned, since all of these businesses must be counted, it would count as 21 businesses, and none of them would be eligible for RRF. When you're filling out your RRF application, you'll be asked if the applicant has any affiliates. Now, these are some scenarios where you have to put yes. You must select yes if the RRF eligible applicant entity has an equity interest or right to profit distributions of 50% or greater of one or more of the other business entities. Additionally, you must select yes if any owner of 20% or greater has an equity, a 20% or greater equity interest in the restaurant that's eligible as an applicant entity. So let me start that again. You must select yes if any owner of 20% or greater equity interest of the RRF eligible applicant entity has an equity interest or right to profit distributions of 50% or greater of one or more of the business entities. So if you have an ownership interest or equity interest of greater than 20%, or you're eligible for 50% or greater of profit distributions, you must answer yes. You also must answer yes if the applicant business is a holding company or management company that owns or manages a business other than the applicant business, or if the applicant business is held or managed by a company that owns or manages other businesses, you must count these entities as separate affiliate locations. Now, if you received, or if the business received a PPP loan, any of those funds that were received through the Paycheck Protection Program will be subtracted from your final RRF funding amount. We verify that information using the EIN, ITIN, or Social Security number that was associated with the PPP loan. If you received a PPP loan, you must use the same EIN number for the RRF application as it is used in the PPP application. You must use it the same way. So if you applied for a first draw PPP loan for multiple locations under one EIN and subsequently applied for a second draw PPP loan under a different EIN, the applicant must provide the EINs for each entities that receive the second draw PPP loan. They all must be counted, and the best way is to apply for the RRF fund using the same EINs, ITINs, or Social Security numbers that you use to apply for the PPP loan. It will help avoid any delays or challenges in verifying your information. Upon applying for the RRF, you must withdraw any outstanding PPP loans, and you must not have a pending application for a shuttered venue operator grant from the SBA. Now, as you're doing these applications, you will be asked to certify that the current economic uncertainty makes the funding request that you are making for the RRF fund necessary in order to support your ongoing or anticipated operations. This is a certification that will be required by all applicants. Again, you're certifying that the current economic uncertainty makes the funding request necessary to support ongoing or anticipated operations. Now, once you receive the funds, there are a variety of different eligible uses of these funds. So some of them are going to look familiar. If you received a PPP loan, if you received an economic injury disaster loan, some of these are very similar. However, there are a few extras that I want to make sure that we cover here. Things like your business payroll cost, including sick leave, are included, as well as business utility payments, business maintenance expenses, and business supplies, including PPE, personal protective equipment, and cleaning materials. Business food and beverage expenses, including your raw materials, are also covered. You are also able to cover any supplier costs, as well as your business operating expenses like insurance, marketing, licensing fees, legal fees, as well as POS equipment, etc. Additionally, if you had to construct outdoor seating for your business, those costs are eligible expenses for this program. However, any expansion of your business is not covered. So if you had to construct outdoor seating, if you had to get barriers, if you had to get outdoor heaters, tables, chairs, those are all eligible expenses under this program. However, if you're going to purchase another unit or lease another unit and you're going to be expanding into another location, that is not an eligible use of these funds. You are able to pay any business mortgage obligation, both the principal and interest, as long as you are not prepaying any principal or interest. You are not able to prepay any loans, but the regular payments that you would make are eligible. You are also eligible to pay any business debt, both the principal and interest, on things like credit cards, loan payments on machinery and equipment. Those normal operating costs are eligible as long as you are not prepaying any of the principal or interest. Now, all of these eligible expenses that we're looking at here, they had to have been incurred during a specific period of time. Now, the funds must be spent on expenses that were incurred between February 15th, 2020 and March 11th, 2023. So if you incurred them after February 15th, 2020, or are going to incur them between now and March 11th, 2023, they are eligible expenses. However, if the business permanently closes after receiving the funds, the covered period will end when the business permanently closes or on March 11th, 2023, whichever occurs sooner. Any funds that are not spent on eligible expenses by the time the covered period ends must be returned to the government. If you do not use the funds by March 11th, 2023, you must return any unused portions to the government. After you have received the award funds, you will be asked to provide a detailed expenditure report and certify what you used the funds for throughout the entire required period of time. Now, inside the portal that you are applying in, you will also be able to provide this type of documentation. Until the applicant completes the use of funds assessment, which will start December 2021, applicants are required to keep self-reported data detailing how you use the funds all the way through 2023. SBA will provide additional guidance on how to do that in the upcoming weeks. Now, many of our business owners are going to fall under this first calculation, and a lot of folks are wondering how they're going to calculate their Restaurant Revitalization Fund amount. Now, if your business was in operation prior to January 1st, 2019, you are going to take the 2019 gross receipts minus the 2020 gross receipts minus your PPP loan amount, and that will be your funding amount. Again, if your business was in operation prior to January 1st, 2019, you'll take your 2019 gross receipts minus your 2020 gross receipts, and then minus your PPP loan amount. For all of the calculations, as we talked before, you will be subtracting any PPP funds that you receive. You do not need to subtract idle proceeds or economic injury disaster loan proceeds. You do not need to subtract any of the additional proceeds that you might have received from city or county grant programs. Those do not need to be included in your gross receipts, and those do not need to be subtracted from your loan amount. The only thing that needs to be subtracted is your 2020 gross receipts and your PPP loan amount. Now, for applicants that began operations partially through 2019, there's a separate calculation for you. You can take your average 2019 monthly gross receipts, multiply it by 12, minus the 2020 gross receipts, minus the PPP loan amounts. Applicants that began operations partially in 2019 may choose to use either calculation or the next calculation that I'm going to talk about, calculation number 3. However, calculation 3 could require longer processing times. So if you are a business that's eligible to apply and you began your operation partially through 2019, you can take your average 2019 monthly gross receipts, multiply it by 12, subtract your 2020 gross receipts, and subtract your PPP loan amount to get your Restaurant Revitalization funding amount. Calculation number 3 is for applicants that began operation on or between January 1st, 2020 and March 10th, 2021, or for applicants that have not yet opened but have incurred eligible expenses as of March 11th, 2021. The total amount spent on eligible expenses between February 15th, 2020 and March 11th, 2021, minus your 2020 and 2021 gross receipts through March 11th, 2021, minus the PPP loan amounts, you will be, that is how you will get your calculation for calculation number 3. Again, for business owners that began operation between January 1st, 2020 and March 10th, 2021, and applicants that have not yet opened but have incurred eligible expenses as of March 11th, 2021, you can use this calculation to be able to determine your funding amount. You'll take the total amount spent on eligible expenses between February 15th, 2020 and March 11th, 2021, subtract your 2020 and 2021 gross receipts going through March 11th, 2021, minus the PPP loan amounts. Applicants that began operation partially in 2019 may choose to use calculation 2 or calculation 3, but as I mentioned before, calculation 3 could require longer processing times. For calculation 4, this is for applicants that operate multiple locations using different calculations. They are able, the applicants that operate multiple locations may calculate funding amounts for their locations using separate calculation methods and then aggregate the amounts together. So if you operate multiple locations, you may calculate the funding amounts for your location using separate calculation methods and then aggregate the amounts together. The aggregate funding amount is limited to $5 million per location and $10 million for the applicant and affiliates. Now, when you calculate your gross receipts, it's important that you do not include the Paycheck Protection Program loan that you received, whether it's first draw or second draw, any SBA Section 1112 payments that were received, any economic injury disaster loans or advance or targeted idle advance, or any grant funds received via the CARES Act do not need to be included. Additionally, if you received any state and local business grants or received any funding through the Randolph-Shepard Act, financial relief and restoration payments, you do not have to include those in your gross receipts. Now, this is a lot of information, and the SBA has a variety of different ways to be able to help folks that are looking at applying. If you have a point of sale vendor, for example, like Clover or Square, as well as some other point of sale vendors that's available at our website, you can apply directly through them. Additionally, you're able to apply by going to restaurants.sba.gov. You may also apply over the telephone. However, that is going to take a lot longer to process. So if you are able to apply, whether it's through your point of sale vendor, and you can reach out to them to find out if they're participating, or look on our website, or you can apply directly through restaurants.sba.gov, those are going to be your best ways to apply. However, if you're not able to apply through those methods, you can call 844-279-8898. Now, the documents that are needed in order to apply are going to be a little bit different for each calculation, and I'm going to cover a couple of those here. The application form is going to be required for all of these calculations. That's the SBA Form 3172 that you'll complete online. It's going to need to be completed, initialed, and signed. You'll be doing all of this digitally on the restaurants.sba.gov platform. Verification for your tax information is going to be required. That's going to be done through an IRS Form 4506T that's going to be completed and signed by the applicant digitally on the SBA grant platform. Gross receipts, you're going to be able to document those in a couple of different ways. Any of these following documents demonstrating your gross receipts are acceptable. Your business tax returns, whether IRS Form 1120 or 1120S, IRS Form 1040, Schedule C, IRS Forms 1040, Schedule F. For a partnership IRS Form 1065, including your K-1s, as well as bank statements or externally or internally prepared financial statements, such as income statements or profit and loss statements. Additionally, your point of sale reports and your IRS Form 1099K are eligible to be able to verify your gross receipts. For calculation 1 and 2, you are required, again, to submit the SBA Form 3172. the IRS Form 4506T, as well as the 2019 gross receipts. You want to make sure that you include your most recent 3 months bank statement. Now, this is important because we will be relying on this information not only to verify your income or verify your banking information, but this will also be used to where the funds will be deposited as well. So your 2020 gross receipts, in order to verify those, the preferred method is to provide us with your federal tax returns that have been filed or your point of sale report. Now, if those are not available, an acceptable method is to provide externally or internally prepared financial statements, such as income statements or profit and loss statements. However, these must be signed and dated and certified for accuracy by the applicant. Now, if you have any questions about these, please include those, feel free to put those in the chat box or actually in our Q&A function, question and answers function. We have folks that are online right now that are able to answer your questions as we're going through this. So if you have any questions, please include them in the question and answer box, and we'll try and answer those as quickly as possible. For calculation number 3, again, you will be required to provide SBA Form 3172, IRS Form 4506T, your most recent 3 months bank statements, as well as 2020 and 2021 gross receipts, at least one for each year. The preferred method in doing that is 2020 federal tax returns that have been filed, or your 2020 federal tax returns prepared but not yet filed. Your 2020 POS reports or point of sale reports, and your 2021 point of sale reports. Again, those are the preferred methods to be able to document for calculation number 3, your gross receipts. However, if that is not available, you may be able to provide an acceptable method. However, it may take a little bit longer to process your application. You can provide externally or internally prepared financial statements, such as income statements or profit and loss statements that are signed, dated, and certified by the applicant. Additionally, eligible expense documentation for expenses between 2/15/2020, so February 15, 2020, and March 11, 2021, you can provide a qualified third-party accountant or bookkeeper comfort letter with the associated profit and loss statements and balance sheets. That will be the best and fastest way to be able to verify this information. Again, if you can provide a CPA or bookkeeper comfort letter, and you can reach out to your CPA or your accountant to be able to obtain the letter, that is the way that provides the fastest way for SBA to review this information. You can, however, provide externally or internally prepared financial statements, such as income statements or profit and loss statements, as long as they're signed, dated, and certified by the applicant, as well as any expense documentations like payroll documents, 941s, outdoor seating expenditures, invoice payments, etc., as well as any business debt, lender loan statements, etc. However, by providing these methods, although they're acceptable, it could delay the processing of your application. In addition to the documents on the prior slide, if you're a brew pub, a tasting room, a tap room, a brewery or a winery, as well as a distillery or a bakery, you must provide documents evidencing that the on-site sales to the public comprise at least 33% of your gross receipts for 2019. This may include tax and trade bureau forms, state or local forms filed, or internally created reports from an inventory management or sales reporting software. For businesses that opened in 2020, the applicant's original business model should show that at least 33% of the gross receipts and on-site sales were planned for the public. For applicants that are part of an inn, the documents evidencing the sales, the on-site sales of food and beverage to the public must comprise at least 33% of the gross receipts for 2019. For businesses that opened in 2020, the applicant's original business model should have contemplated 33% of gross receipts in on-site sales of food and beverage to the public. Again, the 33% of gross sales of food and beverage must be 33% or more to the public. If you need assistance with your application, there is help available in multiple languages. You can receive assistance by calling 844-279-8898 and advising them of the language assistance that you need, and they will be able to assist you. Additionally, you can find your local SBA district office or any of our resource partners by going to www.sba.gov/local assistance. We have counselors that are available through our small business development centers, our women's business centers, as well as our SCORE partners that are available to help you individually with your application and be able to answer questions that you might have regarding filling out your application. Some of the best practices as you're going through this process, we wanted to make sure we highlighted these for you. It's going to be very important to provide complete documentation. If you provide an incomplete documentation or incomplete application, it will be rejected. The review process will restart when the complete documentation is provided. Remember, there is limited amount of funds available through this program, so delays could jeopardize you receiving an award. Please leverage your resources. If although you don't have to, if you use your CPAs or accounting professionals, they may be able to help you, whether it's through providing you a comfort letter or providing you other documentation to be able to make sure that your application is complete and accurate. Application corrections, we are not able to make application corrections on behalf of the applicant. If you need to make a change, remember, this could delay your application and you will need to contact the call center hotline at 844-279-8898 in order to make sure that any corrections are made. But remember, the best way to ensure that the processing of your application is done in the fastest and most efficient way is to provide complete documentation that does not require any changes. Now, if you still intend to apply for PPP, remember, RRF applicants are advised to complete your PPP application before you complete the Restaurant Revitalization Fund application. You must, as I mentioned before, you must remove any PPP applications that are not funded. You must withdraw those applications prior to applying for the Restaurant Revitalization Fund. It's important to know that currently we are in, for the first 21 days of the program, there is a priority period. We are accepting applications from everyone. However, only applicants from small businesses owned by women, veterans, as well as socially and economically disadvantaged applicants are going to be funded during this period. Again, business owners for the first 21 days that are owned by women, veterans, as well as socially and economically disadvantaged applicants will be funded during this period of time. On day 22, all eligible applicants applications will be processed until all of the funds are exhausted. Now, for women and veterans and socially and economically disadvantaged individuals, the business must be owned by 51%, and the daily operations of the applicant are controlled by these individuals. So the business must be owned by 51% by a woman, a veteran, or a socially and economically disadvantaged individual. And you must certify on the application that you meet these eligibility requirements. For example, if you have 5 owners and each own 20%, if 2 of the owners are veterans and 1 owner is a socially and economically disadvantaged individual, SBA will consider this applicant to meet the requirement because at least 51% of the applicant is owned by a priority group. As far as what is a socially or economically disadvantaged individual, those are the people that have been subjected to racial or ethnic prejudice or cultural bias because of their identity as a member of a group without regard for their individual qualities. Individuals are presumed to be socially disadvantaged include Black Americans, Hispanic Americans, Native Americans, including Alaska Natives and Native Hawaiians, as well as Asian Pacific Americans and subcontinent Asian Americans. Economically and disadvantaged individuals are those socially disadvantaged individuals whose ability to compete in the free enterprise system has been impaired due to diminished capital and credit opportunities as compared to others in the same business area who are not socially disadvantaged. Now, any entity that is reorganizing their business structure for the purpose of being qualified for this priority period, you will be automatically disqualified for the award. So if your business was not already set up to be owned and operated by 51% of any of these categories, and you modify your business structure in order to qualify for the program, you will be automatically disqualified. Now, there are some fundings that are set aside for applicants that have less than 500,000 in gross receipts. We've set aside $5 billion for individuals that have gross receipts of not more than 500,000. Additionally, there's $4 billion set aside for individuals with gross receipts of between 500,000 and 1.5 million. An additional 500 million is set aside for applicants with less than 50,000 in gross receipts. Now, SBA reserves the right to reallocate these funds based on the discretion of our administrator. Now, today on the call, we have district directors from all over the state of California. I know we have individuals from all over the country on the call here today. My big thank you to the Thai Chamber of Commerce for helping us get the information out. If you're located within the state of California, these district offices are available to serve you. If you're in San Francisco, you can email the San Francisco district office, and I think District Director Julie Klaus is actually on the call today, answering questions in the chat box. The email address there is sfomail@sba.gov. My office here in Los Angeles can be reached at lado@sba.gov. Additionally, the Sacramento District Office can be reached by Heather Lutzi, who is on the district director there and on the call with us today. She can be reached at sacramento.do@sba.gov. As well as the Fresno District Office, whose district director is Dawn Golick, and on the call with us today. She can be reached at fresno@sba.gov. Again, there's a variety of different resources that are available to assist. We have these different websites and links that we will put inside our chat box. And if you have any questions about any of our coronavirus relief programs, as well as our PPP loan, our shuttered venue operator grants, or our restaurants program, there are programs that are available and information that is available in language provided to us online via our website. If you are on Twitter, please follow us on through Twitter. A lot of the information is regularly being updated through that, and those handles are there. Regular information is also provided through our regular updates, which you can subscribe to by going to sba.gov/update. Now, we're going to go ahead, and I think we got through a lot of the questions in the chat box, and we want to make sure that we have answered a lot of these questions. I know, Rosalind, I'm not sure if you can help out a little bit with, there's one question in here from Naren, and it's in Thai. Would you be able to provide us with what that is?
I think B will have to, Orawan will have to help you with that question, as
Sure.
I'm not as fluent in reading Thai.
Okay, that's fine ค่ะคุณนรินทร์นะคะ the question is if he did not find the tax return on the 2020 how can he do to fill the application, because it's only 20 minutes to fill the application. That's perfect.
Yeah, so if they were in operation, they have the best way, the preferred way, depending on when they were in business, or depending on which calculation that you're using, Naren, you want to make sure the best way is to provide us with the federal tax returns that are filed. However, there are acceptable ways that you can provide that SBA will still accept. However, it may delay your application a little bit longer. You can provide externally or internally prepared financial statements, as well as income statements or profit and loss statements that are signed, dated, and certified by you, the applicant. All right. And I think most of these other ones have been answered throughout the chat.
Actually, I have another question coming in my text message. They ask,
Go for it.
Okay, they're asking if they still they open the business on 2019, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the 2020 they still and then the 2020 they have to shut down the business. They lost the location, they lost the lease, but they still operate that under the corporations, do the catering. Can they apply?
So if they are not permanently closed, so for applicants that are in operation, and I've got this screen back on the or the PowerPoint back on the screen. For applicants that were in operation prior to January 1st, 2019, and they are not permanently closed, it sounds like they shut down their location, but they have not permanently closed the business. They could be eligible to apply. They would just need to make sure which calculation they would use, because if they began partially through 2019, they would use calculation number 2. If they were in operation prior to January 1st, 2019, then they can use calculation number 1. But the key is that they cannot be permanently closed. And it sounds like the question that you received, they are not permanently closed. They are still in operation and they have an intent to continue operation. Therefore, it sounds like they would be eligible to apply.
Okay, thank you.
And there is information available on our website at sba.gov/restaurants. And we want to make sure that that folks are able to get this information. If you have any questions, you have a variety of resources available to you. Our great partners like the Thai American Chamber of Commerce can help answer questions or direct you to us. So please feel free to reach out to them, but also our district offices and our resources. This isn't the only time that you need to ask your questions or get information. You can also be able to reach out to us directly by contacting us, whether it's through email or reaching out to us directly through contacting our district offices, or going to sba.gov/local assistance to find other resource partners that are available. Rosalind, with that, I think we've covered all of the documentation and everything that's in there. Any other closing remarks from the chamber?
Yes, Ben, that was excellent. That was a lot of information, really good, helpful information that I think covered all the major points. It was really good for me to hear that, that our Thai community and women-owned businesses will be considered a priority for the U.S. government in providing relief. I'd like to thank you, Ben, and your staff, Randall, at the LA SBA District Office for really doing this really last minute and coming together to help our community as we rush to get this information out. Thank you to all of the SBA district offices for joining. Thank you to our interpreters thank you SBA for providing our Thai language interpreters. That has been such a barrier to information. This is complicated information, and I think it's going to be really beneficial. We'll be able to continue to share this recording with other Thai business owners who couldn't join today. And I thank you, all the Thai businesses who took their time out of their busy day to come and join. And thank you to the Consul General's Office for your cooperation in helping us put together this webinar. A lot of thank yous and getting the information out. So thank you.
I think it's absolutely amazing, Rosalind, that we were able to pull this together. And I think it shows the Thai community that, we pulled this together, and you have pretty much the entire state of California's SBA directors on this call with you to make sure that the information was shared and that the information is available to our Thai community. And we look forward to continuing to partner, not only here in Los Angeles, but throughout the state, in making sure that you have information available.
Yes, this is going to be one of the new SBA Thai Chamber webinar series that we're going to start. So we'll stay tuned for that.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And we look forward to the next one.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.